Welcome to the Steelers by the Lake podcast. My name is James Strong, joined once again by my co-host, Cody Tanner. Cody, how are you on this? We won Wednesday.
We won Wednesday. There's a new one. James, oh my Lanta. This was a crazy game. It was very stressful at the beginning, but I'm doing fantastic. We got the dub. I was at the hotel bar with Pat, the owner, and a bunch of people. MJ was there. MJ's this nice little old lady that was next to us and talking to us 2 weeks in a row now. Season ticket holder. It was just a fun time, man. When you get in that environment of a small hometown Steelers bar and everyone's rooting for the Steelers, it's just a good time. A friend of the podcast, Nick Pretzel, was there with me as well. So just a good time. James, how are you today? How are you on this lovely Wednesday?
Doing good. And for those on YouTube,
Couldn't read it. Put it back up.
It says, what? Was it blurry?
No, there we go. Keep calm and hail the King of the North. That is the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Pittsburgh Steelers after the Baltimore Ravens just really choking.
Yeah, and they got the 5-3 Denver Broncos next week, so that's no pushover for them.
Yep, they're on the upswing.
Yeah, Bo Nix is improving. It seems like every single week that he plays. So very interesting to see what's going to happen there. Obviously, we have a bye week. There will be no episode between now and next Friday, I believe, for anyone keeping track of the podcast, unless James and I discuss and we want to have like a little, mid-season update and talk about something. We could potentially do that. If that's something you guys want, let us know in the comments or DM us on social media so we can at least see the interest there. But the plan right now is nothing, take a little bye week ourselves and nothing until the preview show for the, the Commanders game. Washington Commanders is the next opponent we have.
Which if we don't have demand for it, that's when we'll do that recap stuff we were talking about doing on the bye week there. So we'll interject that into that show.
Absolutely. So James, before we talk too much about this game with the Giants and Steelers game that happened Monday night in Pittsburgh, let's talk a little bit of stuff that happened in practice and the roster moves. Justin Fields did have an injury. It looks like a hamstring in practice, so that was unfortunate for him. Luckily he wasn't the starter at this point. He's dealing with a little injury. That's no issue. He wound up not having to come in and play. But you do have to keep an eye on that moving forward. If Russell were to get injured, if Justin Fields isn't 100%, then it's Kyle Allen, and then we're getting a little scared. So keep an eye on that. We had a lot of running back and wide receiver moves. James, you want to go over that?
Yeah, and we kind of alluded to this. We thought this was something might happen. We suggested this a couple of weeks ago when we saw Aaron Shamplin not get dressed on a Sunday, and they elevated Jonathan Ward and played him from the practice squad. So Aaron Shamplin officially released from the 53-man roster. Jonathan Ward promoted to the 53-man roster from the practice squad. That's exactly what we told you guys we thought was going to happen a couple weeks ago. Wide receiver Brandon Johnson was elevated for game day. This is his final elevation. He has run out of them, so no more for him. And then the big news injury-wise beyond what happened with Justin Fields, because we don't know the severity of that hamstring yet. This could be something he's ready to go in a couple of weeks.
Yep.
Maybe not as well. You never know. Unfortunately, that hamstring with Roman Wilson, he did get an MRI. Whatever the results were negative enough for them to put him on the injured reserve. So that really stinks. This is starting to be kind of reminiscent of Calvin Austin III's rookie season.
And Corey Trice.
The whole thing was lost.
And Corey Trice. It's very interesting that this is 3 years in a row, a mid to high caliber rookie that we drafted fairly early. I said mid.
Yeah, but Corey Trice was the 7th round pick.
That's true.
So he was a late pick.
late pick, but in my mind, it was an important position at the time. Pittsburgh struggling with cornerback to some degree. I think that was that the last year. We didn't have Patrick Peterson for his rookie year. So I don't know. I'm just processing through young rookies that in training camp, granted Roman Wilson was injured then as well. We heard a lot of good things about them at the beginning of training camp, all three of them. And then, boom, they're injured. They're dealing with lingering injuries all year, and then boom, IR. It's just very weird that it's happened 3 years in a row with these young rookies. I don't know if it's just coincidence. I don't know if Pittsburgh's sneakily, and I'm not saying this is happening, but listen, we can believe in crazy theories and stuff like that. Maybe Pittsburgh's trying to hide talent so they keep it longer. I don't know.
You don't get to keep him any longer, though.
But he doesn't get looked. I don't know. We'll get to this.
All right, this is one of the more tinfoil hat
conspiracy theory on my head. That's fine.
You got to loosen that.
If it happens next year, though, I'm gonna freak out. I'm just saying.
So you telling me to tell this guy to fake an ACL tear?
I've seen crazier things.
Plantar fasciitis is one of the most injury, a high ankle sprain, and what appears to be possibly a hamstring tear. We're gonna fake these things.
We'll keep an eye on it.
We need Roman Wilson on the field.
We'll let you know, listeners. We'll let you know. I'm gonna dive deep into this. I'm going to Pittsburgh as an undercover sports medicine analyst.
Deprived, folks. He needs more sleep.
I am sleep deprived. I got 3 hours last night and then just worked 9.5 hours. It was great. Inactives for the game. Let's go over this real quick. Quarterback Justin Fields was inactive. Obviously, the emergency third string quarterback was also him. Cornerback CJ Henderson, the one of the newest additions we got, was also inactive. Nick Herbig, Zach Frazier, and Cordarrelle Patterson, all guys that we were kind of expecting to be inactive at this point. But James, now it's time to talk about this game. And holy moly, good molly, oh golly, geez, what the frick? I was impressed to start off with. The first 3 drives, I was very upset as much as I was impressed. We drove the ball right down the field, moved the ball very well, and then boom, bang, whatever happened, 3 field goals. I think 2 of those 3 drives we scored touchdowns, but they were called back. And both of them to Pickens, and you know why that ticked me off a little bit more. That's fine. But I mean, it was Broderick Jones had that face mask penalty, which took back a touchdown. Apparently 2 feet being the same foot isn't 2 feet. Well, that's apparently a new rule not a new rule, but that's apparently a new discussion of a rule.
Like in the thing that really blows my mind about that one, Cody, is that nobody remembers that this happened to Pittsburgh just a few years ago. Like, I remember it vividly. I don't remember who the receiver was, but this happened to Pittsburgh like maybe 3 or 4 years ago. And nobody in Steelers media seems to remember this. As soon as it happened, I was like, oh, it's not a catch because it has to be both feet. I've seen that before.
Yeah.
And everybody acted like it was the first time they'd ever heard it. So maybe I'm just like some football nerd that knows more than they should and pays too much attention to.
You are a football nerd.
Little rules.
We're sitting here doing a Steelers podcast on a Wednesday night in the middle of the work week. We're a little bit football nerds.
Fair enough.
But that's interesting.
I remember it specifically happening before and knew immediately it would count.
We'll have to do some digging to see if we can't figure out who that was or when that was.
That's going to be tough to find, man.
That's true. We'll figure it out. We'll figure it out. I will go.
First one though, Cody. That first one really made me upset, man, because that face mask was about as minor of a face mask as he didn't even really get a hold of the face mask.
I'm not mad about the penalty. Because it is a penalty. I get it. We would want it called the same way if it was TJ Watt. You know what I mean? So I'm not mad about that.
It didn't affect the play in any way. That's why it upset me.
100% it didn't affect the play. That's what sucks about it. And it wasn't even like Broderick did it on purpose or lost him. It was the natural motion that player went through when Russell scrambled out to the right. And he was just trying to keep his hands up and happened to catch a face mask. That one I don't hold too bad on Broderick. Broderick didn't have a phenomenal day. No. We'll get to that.
No, he had a rough day, but let's be real. That was a penalty flag that did not need. That was kind of ticky-tack, which is really unfortunate for George Pickens more than it is Broderick Jones, honestly, because nobody, 3 weeks from now, nobody's going to remember that Broderick did that. But people are going to look at it. Why isn't George Pickens getting more touchdowns? Man, he's had like 4 of them called back this year already.
Yeah, 2 in one game.
Yeah,
literally. He could have had another one in this game, but he went out of bounds. All right, we'll get to that later. Anyways, But yeah, overall, I mean, we scored 9 points. Both teams scored 9 points in the first half, and then Pittsburgh did their thing in the second half. Defense took over a little bit. Offense didn't make it easy by any means. I will say that. But the third quarter was sprung with a special teams play that was big, and then we got something going in the fourth and got a touchdown, another field goal. But James, let's break it down like we always do. Let's start with the quarterback, with the man, the myth, the legend, Russell Wilson, Mr. Danger Russ himself. 20 of 28. I think that's
very good.
That's very good. That's his best completion percentage probably since he was in Seattle. I don't know if he had a better game than that in I don't know if he had a better game than that in Denver, genuinely.
He wasn't that bad in Denver. He got a bad rap. He had a really good record there. Yeah. He was like 28 touchdowns to 6 picks or something while he was there, and he didn't even play.
Yeah. 278 yards, a 9.9 average. So, averaging almost a first down every pass. The one interception that we'll talk about. And then the unfortunate part here was he was sacked 4 times for a loss of 19 yards. That was a combination of lack of, I think, pocket awareness at some points, but mostly lack of offensive blocking. On the what are you making faces for?
On the fumble?
Huh?
On the fumble?
No, overall the 4 sacks. Okay. The 4 sacks.
The 4 sacks, yeah. I would say honestly some of that was just that defensive line was tough, man.
They were.
Dexter Lawrence was really, really difficult for the front to handle. And even on one play, Dan Moore has been having probably his best year as a Steeler so far. Missed one play in this game, and when he came out, his replacement immediately gave up a sack on the very first play.
Yep.
So some of that was just some crap blocking, honestly. But at least he's still sitting there with the 1 touchdown, 0 interception. So that's a positive mark there. But one interesting thing from this game, Cody, I heard this from Alex Kozora of Steelers Depot. In this game, Pittsburgh had 19 plays for 10 plus yards.
I saw that.
63 offensive plays. So almost a third of the offensive plays went for 10 plus yards in this game, which is absolutely tremendous. This is back-to-back games with over 400 yards for the offense, which didn't happen once under Todd Haley's regime.
Yep.
Not Todd Haley, I'm sorry.
Matt Canada.
The previous Matt Canada's regime. So just they're moving the ball. They're getting successful drives. They're scoring at the end. Just a little bit of bad luck kept 2 touchdowns off the field. If we're talking about 2 touchdowns instead of 2 field goals on those drives, that's an additional 8 points on this, and we're looking at a score that looks like a real blowout. And that's why, to me, this game was nowhere near as close as what the score was.
No, not at all. And unfortunately, though, it was. Unfortunately, when you look at that, you're like, wow, that was a 1-score game. It honestly was, because they had the ball late in the fourth and could have gone down and scored a touchdown and a 2-point conversion, and we would be having a drastically different conversation right now. But the defense stepped up big in that fourth quarter. We'll talk about that later. We'll get there. It's a very, very important key to all of this. But Russell Wilson had a good game. His long bombs are looking better and drastically more accurate than I thought they looked last week. I was hard on him for underthrown balls last week, rightfully so. I do think it was rightfully so, but he was shaking the rust off, like I said last week.
Yeah.
But
no rust this week.
No rust. The one ball that was quote unquote underthrown was purposely underthrown back shoulder to Van Jefferson, and it was a very, very good pass that only he could make.
And you could also say the deep ball to Scotty Miller, he could have put it a little bit further out there.
That's very true.
And then that would have been easier for Scotty Miller. It did go right through his hands, though. But a difficult catch because the defender was kind of shielding his vision of the football.
Yeah.
But when it falls right in between your hands, as Cody likes to say, if you get your hands on the ball, you got to catch it.
That's what I was taught in high school, man. That's what I was taught in high school. If your hands touch the ball, you better catch it. Just ask Stevenson about that. The Bears defensive back that was talking trash to the fans and then tipped the ball. And
ask Malik Neighbors, for crying out loud, man.
That's also true.
In this game,
he did have a couple drops, wide open drops at that. But no, I thought Russ had a good game outside of his lost fumble. That's the first lost fumble for Pittsburgh this year by a quarterback. Justin Fields had a few fumbles, but he never lost them. They were always either he recovered them or someone else did, thankfully.
Yeah, he had like 5 or 6 fumbles, but somehow we came up with all of them.
Yeah. Very, and most, I think probably half of those were bad, not bad snaps, but bad center to quarterback connection with the snap. But again, I mean, Russell had a beautiful dime pass to Calvin Austin that wound up being a touchdown. Beautiful dime pass to George Pickens on the same side that was literally put in the perfect, I mean, double coverage, perfectly placed. Yep. And you couldn't ask for a better ball there. Could have turned it into a touchdown. Unfortunately didn't. But
yeah, hitting guys in stride all night, right?
All night. Darnell Washington.
Van Jefferson getting really involved in this game.
Yep.
So we're seeing a great distribution of lots of different targets throughout the game. Everybody's getting involved. No one person too heavily, and the accuracy is allowing for a lot of yards after catch.
Yeah.
I mean, that's part of why we're seeing, 264 yards last week, 278 yards passing this week. Those high yardage totals passing, it's accuracy on the deep balls, and it's hitting people in stride on the short ones.
And I'll even say this, it's play calling to some degree. It's you're scheming guys open. The Darnell Washington play this week was much better than I thought it was last week. They didn't throw it to him right at the line of scrimmage. They let him get a little bit downfield first. And then when he got that ball, stiff-armed the one defensive back that didn't stand a chance, the poor guy, against 6'7" Darnell. So, I mean, and again, I thought he did a good job of getting the ball around, just like you said. This week looks better than last week. Let's jump to the wide receiver room in the receiving core before we go running. George Pickens on 5 targets had 4 catches for 74 yards. That's an 18.5 average. That's phenomenal. Van Jefferson on 5 targets, 4 receptions, 62 yards. Calvin Austin on 4 targets had 3 catches for 54 yards and that 1 touchdown. Darnell Washington 1 for 1 for 29. I mean, that one play changes field position, even if you punt it, even if it turns into a special teams game. Pat Freiermuth, 2 targets, 2 catches for 19 yards. Najee Harris caught 3 for 17. Jaylen Warren, 2 for 13. And Michael Pruitt even got involved, 1 for 10. It was real funny at watching the game at the hotel bar, and he got the ball, and I was like, Michael! And I heard Pat and them, a group of them talking about, I don't even know who that guy is. And some, something was said, and I said who it was, and they're like, the one guy said something about, you must be a good fan. I was like, I have a podcast. I do a podcast. I was like, you're telling me you don't know who the 4th string tight end is? What kind of fan are you?
Yeah, right.
So that was a fun time.
On the roster right now.
Literally. So, I mean, he's probably the 5th string tight end. Let's be real.
No, he's above Rodney, and he's getting a lot more snaps than Connor Hayward is right now, too.
True.
And you gotta kind of feel for Connor because, man, the kid really plays his heart out.
He balls out when he plays.
He's getting some snaps at fullback, but he's a size mismatch in the wrong direction, and that's hurting him right now.
Yep. I think he'll get more involved as the year goes on, because I think the fact that they don't use him so much means that when he is in there and he does one of those wheel routes, he's just wide open because no one thinks it's going to him.
Yeah.
So I'm calling that right now. Expect a big play from Connor Hayward before the year is up in a big moment. I think they're going to utilize that sneakiness that he has. Is there any one of these wide receivers you want to talk about a little bit more? I kind of went over on the Darnell. George Pickens had himself a better day than this. Unfortunately, it doesn't show. You talked about Van. I thought, let me insert this before, and then you can talk about one of these guys. Let me insert this question. Because if you're watching on YouTube, it's in the banner, the ticker at the bottom. Does Pittsburgh benefit from trading for a wide receiver at this point?
I think that's a great question, and honestly, it's something I wanted to talk about. We're starting to see a real nice influx from Calvin Austin III, from Van Jefferson. These guys are filling in the role of what you're looking for. What's the point of trading for one right now, and who are you going to get? I don't think you're going to get a guy that's good enough to really be drastically better than what you're getting out of either one of the 2 players. And if you do this, you're going to kind of stunt the growth of Calvin Austin III, who looks like he's turning into a guy who could be a really high quality number 2. I don't want to trade for a wide receiver right now. I don't.
Nope. And I'm right there with you. I felt this way from the beginning a little bit because I didn't feel like with the play calling and the style of football we were playing with Justin Fields didn't give the chance to highlight wide receivers very often. We used a lot of running backs. We used a lot of, tight ends in the flats and stuff like that. He had a couple long bombs to George, but that's because it's freaking George. I didn't feel like we schemed to get these other guys open. And now that we are with Russell, they're proving that they can catch the ball. Like the Calvin Austin touchdown was not an easy touchdown. That ball was, over the shoulder. You see a lot of guys, even in the NFL nowadays, can get lost on that, not know where their feet are, step out of bounds, fall, whatever. Calvin Austin is showing he can be a solid number 2. Van Jefferson is performing like a solid number 2. Mm-hmm. I think at this point, you would give up too much, even if it was a 6th or a 5th round pick for a wide receiver that I don't think will drastically do anything different or better than what these guys can do or what they're doing right now.
Yeah, and if you do it, are you putting yourself, and I feel like if you do this, right, you're basically kicking Scotty Miller off the roster.
Yep.
Which I don't think that Scotty Miller is like irreplaceable by any means.
No.
But then also, what if Roman Wilson is ready to be returned to the roster later on in the season?
Yep.
If he is, then where the heck are you coming up with that roster space? Because right now, you're not really using Scotty Miller all that much. So if the end of the season comes and you need to bring Roman back onto the 53, it's easy to think, hey, we'll just let Scotty Miller go and we'll let Roman take his spot, and we'll hope that he can be a better quality, and knowing that we've got him in the future and all of that. If you make a trade for somebody, you don't have anyone to release. Now you're having to make a move at another position, which I think, you're looking at, there's 5 tight ends on the roster. Obviously, you could let one of them go and put them back to the practice squad. But it's decisions that you might not want to have to make.
Yep.
And Cordarrelle Patterson is probably going to be back for this next game. He can play some wide receiver in a pinch. I just don't see the urgency.
No, and I'm right there with you. And when you look at the team, Pittsburgh only has 4 wide receivers on the team, like active roster guys. That is unheard of. But it's because we're running so many 2 and 3 tight end sets that we're getting away with this. And I think what we're about to see when you talk about Brandon Johnson just getting his last elevation, you have guys like Lance McCutcheon, the wide receiver from Montana State, who's still on the practice squad, and then the guy we just signed, Andy Isabella, on the practice squad. I think they're going to either rotate or utilize these guys' elevations for the next few weeks to make them available while they wait to see what happens with Roman Wilson, while they wait to see what happens with the wide receiver market. I don't think there's a rush or any honest need to trade for a wide receiver. I think you'd benefit more before this week. You would have benefited more, I think still technically, for trading for a starting caliber offensive lineman. Now that's not an attack on anybody on our offensive lineman. They've been playing fairly well. Mason McCormick, for the most part, has been playing well. We got Siamalu. Broderick Jones is having an up and down kind of season. I still want to see him get back to the natural left tackle. I think he performed better over there. Personally, I want to see more of him over there. I think you'd benefit from trading for a tackle more than you would a wide receiver. And then even on top of that, I think that there's a benefit for a cornerback, but there's almost not now as well when we discuss later on the addition of Cam Sutton, who just got reinstated by the NFL after his 8-game suspension. He's obviously back for the bye week. He'll be with the team this week and next week and then be ready to go again. And we'll get to that in a minute. Where's the spot on the roster for him? It's
actually available. It's available right now because they only had 52 men on the roster going in. So it's there. And I think, honestly, we're going to see a couple of moves. I'm just going to tell you right now what I do. I think that he's going to take that open spot. And then with Dylan Cook being in that 21-day window before this next game happens, they have to make a decision on him.
Yep.
I think the offensive tackle, Calvin Anderson, I believe is his name, the guy that got snap and got beat on that snap.
Yep.
I think they release him and then try to put him back on the practice squad. Tyler Matakevich, also that decision is going to need to be made before the next game. And I think the move there is going to be Rodney Williams will be released and put back to the practice squad, and Tyler Matakevich brought back in. So I would look for those moves to happen. And then we'll see what happens after that. Is Corey Trice close? they start the 21-day window on Corey Trice.
Yeah.
That's the next thing to drop for me is what's going on with Corey Trice. Maybe even Logan Lee to bring him back. I think they might just let him sit on the IR all year.
Yeah. So we're bouncing around a lot because there's just a lot of things going on leading into this bye week and roster moves that are going to happen that we're waiting to see what's going to happen. But the trade talk has been there for wide receiver. Both of us are very, very strict on we don't think that will drastically benefit from a wide receiver at this point. But James, with that being said, let's bounce back to stats and talking about this game. We'll jump over to the running back room. Najee Harris, 19 for $114, 6-yard average. I thought he ran very hard early and often. He had a little bit of a slowdown time, but also was just kind of hitting holes that weren't there, unfortunately, for a few plays. Nothing drastic. A couple plays got stopped. That's going to be the way that it works. But a 26-yard run was his longest. I thought this was a great kind of bounce back game. Not that he had a bad game last week. By any means. Did he have more yards last week? I'm going to pull it up.
I want to say slightly less. He might have been like 104 or 106 last week, I think.
102.
Yeah.
So, but a 4.9 average jumped up to a 6. I think I saw a little bit harder running from him earlier and often. I'll say that. I remember last week he started off a little bit slower, then ran very hard in the second half. I thought it was a little bit more consistent from him this week. With that being said, Jaylen Warren obviously also getting involved, 9 for 46, and then Russ had 3 scrambles for 7 yards. Big whoop.
Low key, that's the best game out of Jaylen Warren yet this season. So maybe he's getting healthy at the right time, right?
Yep.
Here comes the push. Here comes the last 9 games after this bye week coming up. Jaylen Warren starting to play his best ball, which is great because Najee's been kind of the only man in the room for a while now. But let's be real, man. Najee's playing himself into a real big contract. He's now the 5th highest rushing yardage leader in the entire NFL, and the 2nd highest in the AFC, only behind Derrick Henry, who's got like 200 more than the next guy, per the usual Derrick Henry.
Yep.
So he might be in the middle of putting together a Pro Bowl season on his contract year and getting himself paid by somebody if it isn't Pittsburgh.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, and we talked about it a little bit last week. We both would love to see him come back and stay in the black and yellow. But obviously you can't force that. We don't know for sure what's going to happen. Jaylen Warren has done everything he can to say, hey, I'm here and I'm available too. I mean, he's run very hard. He's proven himself. But I think the 1-2 punch from him and Najee is very, very good. And I hope Najee comes back. I don't know if he will or not. That's going to have to be a wait and see. But James, let's talk about this offensive line. What do you want to talk about specifically with these guys?
I think they did a really good job in the first half with Dexter Lawrence. And then in the second half, Dexter Lawrence kind of took over. And that, I would say their pass protection was the biggest struggle for the offensive line unit this week. We saw a couple of times where both Mason McCormick and Ryan McCall just kind of got tossed by Dexter Lawrence. Again, this is like the strongest defensive lineman in the entire NFL. He does this to everybody.
Yep.
I would say for the most part, they held up well and really did an awesome job run blocking in the first half. It kind of tailed off a little bit in the third, and then the fourth quarter, they got going again. And I think a lot of that had to do with kind of expanding the throwing lanes, going deep a lot in that third and fourth quarter and getting the defensive backs and linebackers to back off of that line of scrimmage a little bit. So, yeah, I would say a real rough game out of Broderick Jones. Dan Moore looked pretty decent in the interior 3, a little bit better run blocking.
Yeah, I do believe that the improvement of the deep ball is going to help us more in the upcoming games than it has the previous 2. Obviously, the deep ball wasn't as big of a threat until Russell came in. And then even on top of that, I felt like the Giants still very much were playing run prevent defense for a large majority of the game until we started hitting those deep balls in the second half. I felt like we weren't I don't know if we weren't threatening it enough in the first half or challenging them deep enough in the first half. But once we got some of those deep balls going to Calvin and to George Pickens, I felt like those running gaps were there a lot more. And it makes sense. It does. When that deep threat's there, you have to show respect to it and defend it. And when you do that, you open up lanes for running backs that can get there. And you got to realize it's not, for people who don't understand football, it's not even anything super crazy. If you have 9 guys in a box with 6 or 7 blockers on the line of scrimmage, if you include tight ends, you're outnumbered. You got to find a mismatch, or you got to motion somebody or get somebody to the second level to cut off 2 people. It's a lot more challenging to create holes than when there's less people in that box. It's not just a quote unquote number game. It's just literally having the bodies in place to manipulate guys to have openings. And I think a lot of that comes from play calling as well. I think we continuously see better running play calling. I like the counters we've been doing. I like the play action that we've been doing. That is helping a lot as well. And Russ is very, very good at play action. So I think just getting guys in the right position. There was one team that even started, I would love to see Pittsburgh do this. I don't know who they do it with. But they've started putting a lineman in the slot receiver position and then putting him in motion to let him get a running head start for a block. Mm-hmm. But I mean, do that with Darnell. He's going to mull over everyone who's in his way. So excited to see what's going to go moving forward with that running game and that offensive line improving as well.
Yeah, and I just wanted to say real quick, like that first half, boy, was the running game effective. They averaged about 10 yards a carry for Najee. Then the Giants made that change in the beginning of the third. That's when you saw the running game stop being so effective. And then the deep ball came, and then it opened right back up in the fourth quarter, and they sealed the game that way. So, a lot of hand in hand. But I like that we finally caught the Giants in a nickel while we were in our base, which is something that's been happening to Pittsburgh a lot. We're in the nickel, only have 2 defensive linemen out there, and then other teams are running us and just running right down the field. We did that to them. And it was a real nice thing to see our coaching staff kind of scheming it up in a situation where you had the advantage numbers-wise block that. So very effective. Do you want to move over to the defensive side of things now, Cody?
Yeah, let's do it. Obviously, that defensive front led by Cam Hayward. Cam had a good day. 2 QB hits, 1 pass breakup as well for him. 6 total tackles on the game. And then it kind of fell off. Larry Ogunjobi had a tackle for loss and 3 tackles total. Keanu Benton had 2 tackles total. And outside of that defensive line outside of Isaiah Loudermilk registering a tackle was kind of quiet in the sense of stats. Now, when you go back and watch film, they had phenomenal penetration on a lot of passes that, quite frankly, they're not getting there fast enough because TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith are. It's not because they're slow. It's not because they're not getting penetration. Cam Hayward got a lot of penetration this game. I thought this was arguably one of the best on-tape games that I've seen from Keanu Benton. He just didn't register a bunch of numbers. But I thought his penetration, his control of the offensive line, he limited cutback lanes at times and forced a running back just to run into his own lineman at some point. I thought Keanu Benton had a very good game. I still want to see a little bit more out of Larry Ogunjobi. I feel like we're getting splash plays from him every 3 games. I want to see that try to be a little bit more consistent. But again, that defensive front led by Cam Hayward, and Cam Hayward is coming to ball consistently.
I'll tell you right now, it's not coming from Larry Ogunjobi. It's not there. It's not who he is. He's playing in the wrong defense. He's a 4-3 defensive tackle trying to play 3-4 defensive end, and it is not working. I couldn't be more frustrated with him. You see Cam Hayward week after week putting up dominant performances, and we're seeing some splash, like you said, from Keanu Benton, stacking guys up and making people move. But this defensive front was bad against the run in this game. Mm-hmm. They were just bad. There's no sugarcoating it. They were not filling in the holes. We had people consistently in the same hole where somebody else is not in the one they're supposed to be in, like the 45-yard touchdown run. We had both Deshaun Elliott and Patrick Queen in the same hole. In fact, Deshaun Elliott dang near tripped over Patrick Queen's ankles instead of moving over and plugging the empty hole that was there that he ran right through.
Yep.
Just some simple mistakes there. And I feel like part of what's going on there is that we're missing that third guy on the defensive line. When we're in our base, we don't have three guys standing up the offensive lineman because Larry Ogunjobi's a penetration dude. So if he doesn't get penetration, then he loses on a defensive run stop attempt. He just doesn't have the length. So it just doesn't work for him. And man, it is so frustrating to see, like, most of their run plays, they went left, but when they went to the right, they made sure to be at least one gap inside of TJ Watt. So as TJ's trying to get to the passer, it would go just inside of him. And we didn't see Larry Ogunjobi make a stop once, man. So now it's up to the middle linebackers. And guess what? Whoever is on that time has got to try to fight through a guard to get there.
Yep.
And it's so frustrating to not see it happening. I felt like really the bright spot against the run was Elandon Roberts again, as stout as can be against the run. But man, who are you pulling off the field, right? We're not pulling Patrick Queen off, and we're not pulling Peyton Wilson off.
Yep.
Especially with Peyton Wilson's ability to really run and chase multiple times in this game. He was the guy getting somebody to the ground before it could turn into a bigger play than it already was. So I'm just frustrated with the run defense in this game because they really got gouged by a 5th round rookie.
Yep.
And that makes me a little bit worried about Ravens here when Derrick Henry comes to town. They have got to play better run defense going against the Ravens, or the Ravens are going to 250 or 300 against them.
Yep. Yeah, especially with the mobility of Lamar Jackson, for sure. But, you obviously brought up Elandon Roberts. Let's bounce to that middle linebacker room. Elandon Roberts, I thought, performed very well against the run. Again, he's a little bit of a liability in the passing game. He did have 1 tackle for loss, 3 tackles total. Outside of his lack of coverage ability, I think Elandon Roberts is probably one of the better run defenders on the team, top 2 probably, in my opinion, if you want to include Cam Hayward. And then
Cam and TJ probably,
literally. And the only reason TJ's numbers aren't better at the run game is because he typically plays the pass and he's over extending down and getting played up by the running back or the lineman, whoever's playing him.
And they're running away from him all game long.
Yep. And sometimes when he does that, he just runs down the line.
Yeah.
And still makes a tackle.
You look in this game, he's got 2 tackles for loss in this game, and so does Alex Highsmith. And then the rest of the team combined has 2.
Yeah.
Those aren't even supposed to be the guys that are getting tackles for loss in the run game.
No, they're definitely not. Patrick Queen led the team with 8 tackles along with Joey Porter. We'll get to him in a little bit. But it's nice to not see a certain Minkah Fitzpatrick name up there again. So Patrick Queen, 8 tackles. I thought he got beat a couple times on quick outs and plays like that. Stuff that I wish he played a little bit better, as kind of being known for a little bit more of a pass coverage middle linebacker. I'd like to see some interceptions from him, undercutting a pass and making some plays, or at least some breakups. He had no pass defended on this game whatsoever. And then Peyton Wilson, you talk about, he had 2 quarterback hits, which was very impressive in my opinion. He blitzed right up the middle once or twice that I saw. Again, Peyton Wilson making a name for himself in this league at a very young age in his rookie year. Anyone else in that middle linebacker room you want to talk about?
No, that's really it. Those 3 are the only 3 playing right now. So Mark Robinson gets special team snaps, but he hasn't made a splash yet in special teams. Maybe in a couple of weeks here. He'll do that. Let's get to the elephant in the room. It's the best pass rushing duo in the entire NFL.
It's not a duo at this point. I mean, Nick Herbig's stats still count for this team, and he's doing phenomenal. And he's on the bench, or he's hurt, whatever, on the bench, inactive, whatever. But yeah, TJ Watt, 2 sacks, Alex Highsmith, 2 sacks. You can't ask for much more out of 2 guys, especially when you consider the 4th quarter and what TJ Watt did with the sack, fumble, and recovery all in one play. And that right tackle, Illuminor asked for it. He said he wanted to be on an island. Well, guess what? You got it in crunch time, and you didn't do very well.
That island did not treat him well, man, because what he was TJ won.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, because let's be real, TJ got double teamed almost the entire game. So to still pull off 2 sacks, one of them with a forced fumble and fumble recovery on it, is remarkable because he only got a handful of reps where he only had one guy to beat.
I think
took
it was
full
6
advantage of it when he did.
I think it was 6 or 7 was the total number of one-on-one plays he had.
Yeah.
And he registered 2 sacks and 2 quarterback hits. So if he had it 6 times, 4 of those plays he got to the quarterback.
In the one, give Alex Highsmith and TJ Watt credit. They switched sides on the one.
Yep.
The offense did not react to it, which gave TJ Watt a one-on-one on the side he does not normally line up on, and he registered a sack on the. Actually, Alex got the sack from the other side on that play.
Yep.
But TJ got to the quarterback first, so that was one of those hits that you said that TJ registered in this game. He got there first. Alex cleaned it up. They just didn't know what to do, and it was funny to see their coaching staff say that they were trying to audible and get the tight end to the other side and couldn't do it in time. And this even caused a delay of game at one point because they're trying to move that tight end around to wherever TJ is and couldn't do it in time and couldn't get the snap off.
Did you see the number of quarterback hits for Alex Highsmith in this game?
No, how many?
6.
Wow, man. I'll tell you what, last week he was incredible at getting after the quarterback. He just didn't get the sacks, right?
Yep.
This week he got the sacks along with it. And I think honestly the last 2 weeks Alex Highsmith has looked absolutely incredible, man. So with him at this rate, if Nick Herbig's able to come back fully healthy in a couple weeks for the game against Washington, oh my goodness, man, you're going to have all 3 of these guys, and you're going to be able to rotate them more frequently, which is going to keep them more fresh, which is going to get you even more production getting after the quarterback. So I am really ecstatic about the direction of this outside linebacker room and the way it is trending currently. Alex Highsmith looks as good as he's looked as a Steeler yet, in my opinion.
Oh, absolutely. And let's not forget the other guy. What are you showing 56 for?
56, Alex Highsmith.
That's true, but that's not the right jersey.
This is the Lamar Woodley version, but yeah, 56. That's why I wore it today.
Well, and let's not forget about the other guy in the room, Jeremiah Moon. I mean, he has the block punt on record now, which was phenomenal. But I want to say this: we haven't seen him get to the quarterback yet, but I do, or have we? Did he get 1 sack in one of his games?
No,
no, not yet. 5 tackles on the year so far. But I when you watch him, James, I want you to pay attention not next week, but obviously the week after. Jeremiah Moon gets pressure. Whoever's in front of him, he gets pushback. I mean, he pushes them into the backfield. I don't know if he needs to figure out a swim move or a spin. Once he works with TJ and Cam and Alex and gets some kind of fundamental move down, something that he likes and he can kind of make it his own, he's going to be right up there with these guys, in my opinion. I think that he gets a lot of penetration. He's just missing the move to get some hands off of him or to get leverage. And once he does that, we're going to have 4 very, very good outside linebackers. We already have 3. I think Jeremiah Moon has a lot of potential to become a 4th. So
yeah, and I think part of this too, for him could come with time, and it's tough because I think this is his 4th year in the league now.
Second or third.
Okay, you'll have to. I'm sure you're looking that up right now. But he's got the length. He's got the athleticism.
It's his second season.
It's his second season?
Yep.
Wow, I thought he was older than that.
No, he's 26. He was a late.
Oh wow!
Old rookie,
24-year-old rookie.
Yeah, he played last year. He played 8 games last year with Baltimore. That was it.
Yeah. So the key thing here for me, like you said, he's got the athleticism, he's got the quick burst, he's got great length. He needs more size. He's got to get a little bit stronger. So he's got to go heavy in that weight room this upcoming offseason. And I think there's absolutely no reason that he can't start turning those pressures in collapsing the pocket a little bit to turning those into sacks. And I think that some of those pass rushing moves are going to get more effective with a little more strength as well.
Yep.
So for right now, he's doing a great job on special teams, and he's staying on his feet now, which is not something we saw his first couple games. He was getting pancaked, knocked to the ground. So we're seeing him stay on his feet. That in itself is a big improvement. So heading in the right direction. I agree with you.
Yeah. Moving to the secondary, Joey Porter led the team with Patrick Queen with tackles with 8. Joey Porter had a phenomenal game as far as coverage goes. I still think he let up one pass. That was a pretty deep ball. I can't remember exactly now for the life of me. But Joey Porter, again, still had a very good game. Look, Beanie Bishop, obviously, with that walk-off interception, it hit his hand and somebody else's hand and then hit his
Joey
helmet.
Porter got to that first. Yeah. And I think, honestly, Beanie got a hand on it when Joey was trying to catch it, which is why it popped up in the air, and then Beanie caught it off for that. So you got to give Joey credit, too, on that one. He dang near got the pick, but he's the reason it went up, and Beanie was able to get it.
Yeah, bounced off Beanie's head. He wound up getting it. That's 3 interceptions in 2 weeks for Beanie. We love that. Dante Jackson probably had one of his worst games as a Pittsburgh Steeler. And that brings up the question we'll ask here in a little bit. What do you do with Cam Sutton when he comes back? And then outside of that, there was a couple guys. Actually, I don't even see any other corners to talk about in this game.
No, I don't think anybody else played on defense.
I mean, James Pierre had 2 tackles, but I'm pretty sure that was special teams. So, again, Joey Porter is him for the most part. He has 1 or 2 bad plays a game, but they're not bad plays like we used to see where we're giving up 2 touchdowns in 2 plays.
You ain't getting beat deep, you know?
No. And Beanie's proven to be at the right place at the right time, which, again, thinking back to a few years ago when we were talking about Levi Wallace joining the team. When you get a guy like that who's a veteran, sometimes half of the interceptions you can get in a season are just right place, right time, knowing where to be. And that's quite frankly what this interception was. You're playing a zone, you're playing prevent defense while they're trying to, come down and score and tie the game up late in the game. But when you play zone, you play preventative, and the pressure we got on that play that got in Daniel Jones's face, and then he overthrows the ball. It just leads to things happening. It makes plays all around. That's a total defensive play right there. But Beanie
Shout out
Bishop,
Isaiah Loudermilk too. He's the one that got the pressure on that play.
Yep. Love to see it. So I don't know if you want to say anything else about these guys or if you want to go to the safety room, but
yeah, as excited as I am about Joey Porter Jr., looking good. He let up a few passes that were short beneath him, like you said, in the zone stuff. But he never let anything go deep of him. He always secured the tackle afterwards. Just an incredibly disappointing game for Dante Jackson. I think there's been moments throughout the year where he's like maybe a play here or a play there, not been in the greatest position or been beat. This game he got beat by everybody he went. So hopefully this is something where he's just not feeling 100% with that shoulder that's been nagging him. Hopefully the next couple of weeks of not having a game will allow him to heal up. But if he continues trending in that direction, they're going to have to look for something else at that starting number 2 option other than him, because that just won't cut it, man.
Yeah.
Otherwise, every team is just going to pound it at him all game long and score at will.
Yep. Yeah, it'll be very unfortunate. James, you want to bounce to these safety room?
Yeah. Minka had a nice game. Not a big impact as far as the statistics, but something you noticed while we were talking in the game, texting back and forth. He had a real big play on breaking up a sideline catch that could have been a big play, but he hit the guy perfectly, popped the ball out incomplete, and just Minka doing Minka things, right? They're avoiding him. Teams are still avoiding him, still not allowing him to get that interception that we've been dying to see him get. Will it come? You got to hope that it does, but man, they got to throw his direction, pick the dang ball off.
Yep. 100%.
Deshaun Elliott, like I mentioned earlier, he had that one that was really poor. Outside of that, I thought he was good, but that one big run fit did cost Pittsburgh a touchdown. It was a 45-yard touchdown run where Minka almost got him before he got to the end zone. But just got to do better than that. You can't stand behind another player on a defensive run play. That was just the most frustrating thing for me. But this season, Deshaun Elliott has been awesome. So if that's the only time all season that we're recording a podcast and have something negative to say about him, and I'm pretty sure this is the first time all season that's happened, he's having a very good season. So just need better on that one play, and then we're talking about him having a good play as well.
Yeah, not a whole lot of complaints for him up to this point. Let's go ahead and bounce to the special teams real quick. Calvin Austin, and this was a big play. This was the first touchdown of the game. Calvin Austin in the third quarter got a punt, returned it 73 yards for a touchdown. We've seen so many close calls where he was almost able to break it, almost able to hit the seam or get past the last guy or whatever it was. And on this play, I mean, he ran almost the whole length of the field sideways before he cut it up the sideline on the left side, and was able to make a couple guys miss. And his speed, that 3-4-3 speed or whatever it was,
4.32 or 4.33. It's one
3.
of those.
Yeah, I think it was 4.34.
That would be a record if it was 3.4.
Yeah, crazy record. No, just excited and happy to see that happen. And he wound up winning AFC Special Teams Player of the Week with that punt return for touchdown. So that was huge for him. Let's not also forget TJ Watt won AFC Defensive Player of the Week as well. We'll get to those two things right now. Just for their gameplay and everything. Chris Boswell, 4 for 4 on field goals, 2 for 2 on extra points. Boz for president.
Boz for president, baby.
Yeah, we can do field goals up.
I'm like Danny Smith here.
Yeah, Danny.
One shoulder goes up the other. Maybe soon.
Yeah, and then Corliss Waitman, 3 punts for 131 yards, 2 of them inside the 20. Can't ask for a much better game from him. Quite frankly, in my mind. I mean, you can.
You know what I love about Corliss Waitman? I don't remember him shanking one this season.
Not once.
You know, Presley Harvin, it seemed at least once or twice he'd punt one and only go like 25 yards.
Twice a game.
And you're like, what the heck, man? Corliss Waitman seems very consistent. And that average is over 40 every week, man. 43.7 yards per punt in this one. It's a nice average. He's doing a good job. So you got to be happy with a number 2 punter putting together a consistent performance like this. Boswell on pace to break the NFL record for most field goals in a season. But there's another guy who has just as many as him, so technically on pace for it. So, but he is having one tremendous season thus far with only one miss on the entire year, and that was like a 62 or 63 yard attempt. So.
Yeah, we love it. We love it. We are big fans of the punt game when we have to punt. That's a big part. Special teams are a big part of the game. That's why Danny Smith's there. That's why he's been there as long as he has, and that's why he gets rallied upon. Did you hear what he said about the way he got beat up by all the players? I don't know if you saw that interview.
No, what'd he say? What'd he say?
He was basically just saying, you know, I'm not as big as these guys. They beat me up. I got bruises. Blah blah blah. It was a funny interview. If you haven't seen it, that must have happened yesterday or today. It was a funny interview. So if you get the chance to look at it.
You got to give Danny Smith credit, right? So after 3 weeks in a row of either a blocked punt or a blocked field goal, now we get a punt return for a touchdown. We're getting a huge splash play consistency every single week out of these special teams guys with one heck of a special teams coach, Danny Smith.
Yep. Yeah, and that was one of my 3 keys to success was special teams play. So we love to see that. With that being said, that wraps up talking about the game. We're going to talk about injuries here. James, who do we got to talk about?
We lucked out in this one. No major injury. Buddy that out came right back in. I think Dan Moore was like the only play and came back on the next series. So we lucked out in this game. No injury list, which is great because they're getting healthier going into the bye week. So that's going to be the big thing is what happens in 2 weeks. We told you guys that we're going to see Cam Sutton back after this bye week. He's officially reinstated by the NFL. That helps out this secondary. Couldn't come at a better time with Dante Jackson struggling as much as he did in this game. Now you've got a very legitimate guy who can play that number 2 corner if you need to go that direction. And then Dylan Cook and Tyler Matakevich seem to be just about ready to come back as well. So I think we're getting some reinforcements at the right time. And Dylan Cook, low key, if Broderick Jones keeps struggling as much as he is, man, you might see a little bit of Dylan Cook out there at right tackle, and it might not be a bad thing.
Yeah. No, I agree 100%. Excited for people to come back from injuries. Excited that we had no injuries. That's very big for this game. We're going to talk about one more thing. Actually, one more thing before we end the show. And that's a recent trade that the Carolina Panthers did with the Baltimore Ravens. If you guys haven't seen it yet, which I'm sure you have, Deontay Johnson, who Pittsburgh traded for Dante Jackson in the offseason this past year, just got traded to the Baltimore Ravens for a 5th or 6th pick, depending on certain, I don't know what the pending is, correct? Or no, excuse me. No,
Yeah.
he got traded for him and a 6th for a 5th.
Correct. Yeah.
Which was wild. It was basically Carolina just saying, here you go, take him, quite frankly.
Yeah, it's a giveaway because when you think about the positions of these two teams, Carolina expected to finish as one of the worst teams in the NFL. So that 6th round pick that they're giving up is probably going to be one of the first ones in the 6th round. The Ravens expected to finish as one of the top teams in the AFC. That would put their pick at the end of the 5th round. There might only be like a 10 pick difference between these two picks, man. So it's dang near an even pick swap, but also Deontay Johnson on the last year of his rookie deal. So this could be a dang near pit swap for a 9-game rental for decide to extend him. So very important for Deontay to play very well as a Baltimore Raven. If he doesn't want to go into free agency, if he wants to remain a Raven, if not, he could be going into free agency looking like somebody that no one wants.
Yep. Yeah,
That's
I mean,
bad look.
If you watch the last few games for the Ravens, they literally traded for him because of the drops they've been having at wide receiver. Go look at the highlight reel for the past 3 years of Deontay Johnson. It's riddled with drops. And as James was always frustrated on third, fourth down and end zone plays. That's not how you win games with a wide receiver that does that. So bravo, take him. I hope the pressure when he plays us gets to his head and he drops even more balls, because that would be very, very fun to watch as a Steelers fan. He can go catch whatever balls against any other team, just not us. I want to enjoy the, hey, we didn't want him for a reason kind of play. So
you're going to find out if the other Steelers players felt he was a cancer. Because if they do, then they're going to be making sure they hit him as hard as they can. So look to see what these defenders for Pittsburgh do when they get a chance to hit Deontay. If they just do it kind of like safe, normal tackle, then there's nothing there. If you see guys trying to rip his head off, then people are irritated with what he did while he was a Steeler and when he left.
Yep. Very excited to see how this all plays out. Again, we are entering into the bye week. If you guys are interested in hearing or getting a mid-season update show or anything like that, let us know. James and I would be happy to record one and schedule that, but that's not on the plans right now. Taking a bye week as the Steelers take a bye week as well. And then as of right now, we'll be back with you guys, not this Friday, but the following Friday for the preview show for the Washington Commanders game. So again, thank you guys so much for listening or watching. If you're on YouTube, remember to subscribe, ring the bell. It's free. It doesn't cost you a thing. Don't forget 5-star reviews on Apple Podcasts. If you have an iPhone, put those in. Make James Strong here very, very happy. And until next time, this is your host, James and Cody, signing off.
Peace.